Howdy, y'all. I'm Brylan. Wow. So most people did not see this coming. Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost was just elected as the first ever American Pope. Now in this video, I'm going to show you why this is so significant that an American was just elected to be Pope and what it means for America as a world superpower. I'm also going to show you why Prevost chose the name Pope Leo XIV. Spoiler alert, it's kind of scary. And also where he stands on social issues like LGBT. Basically, I'm going to show you everything they don't want you to know about the new Pope. Hey, would you consider hitting that thumbs up button? You know when you like this video, it'll get pushed out to more people to help spread the truth. Now it's wild that an American was selected to be the next Pope. A lot of people, again, didn't think that this would ever be possible because many Catholics believe that since America is such a world superpower, the number one world superpower, that America should not have this type of power over the Catholic Church. They probably announced the vote. They're like, and the new Pope is Prevost. And he's like, Are you serious? Now, who the Pope is actually kind of a big deal because the Catholic Church has over 1.4 billion people that makes up a majority of those who identify as Christian. So the more progressive the Pope is, the more progressive the Catholic Church becomes, and the more governments begin to crack down on biblical Christianity. Again, this shouldn't scare born-again believers, but it should be a wake-up call that we should be watchful so that we know the times we're living in. Now again, this is Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost, who now goes by the name Pope Leo XIV. He was born in Chicago, Illinois. He's only 69 years old, which, believe it or not, in the papacy makes him very young. So the fact that an American was elected Pope is already like a mind blower. And then you add the fact that he's so young. This man could be Pope for decades. And I think there's already talk of a lot of Catholics being untrustworthy of the papacy now, being very upset that America now holds this kind of power over the Catholic Church. Now, for several years, he was a prefect of the Vatican's dicastery for bishops, which basically means that he was in charge of nominating bishops all around the world. Now, he also ran the Diocese of Peru until 2023, and then Francis brought him into Rome for his current role before he now became the Pope. Now, a lot of people are saying the fact that he's an American is kind of dampened now since he has dual citizenship with Peru. That makes it a little easier. I think they took that into an account to kind of help people that have an issue with this. In fact, here's the moment when he was shown to the world.
Very special moment.
Very special moment.
And here he is. There he is, Kirk.
And the applause going up, the greeting, the waving,
big
the
smiles. How amazing.
How amazing.
And Dr. Liz was also talking about the symbolism of the red that he's wearing. You know, it is a sacrificial role, and that is the symbol of the cloth that he's wearing right now.
Look how the mainstream media is reacting to this. This is why I use Ground News, because they show you how the left and the right are spinning the news. Look at this. On the left, they say Prevost, now Pope Leo XIV, overcame a taboo against U.S. pontiff. And the right is saying Trump congratulates Robert Francis Prevost on his election as Pope Leo XIV. You know, if you're sick of trying to figure out when the media is lying to you or not, Ground News shows you exactly when the mainstream media is being biased or not. Their blind spot feature shows you when the left or the right isn't covering the news that you should know about. You can also see who owns each news outlet. If you go to ground.news/Brylan or scan the QR code on the screen, you can get 40% off the same Vantage plan that I personally use. Thank you for supporting the sponsor of this video, Ground News. It helps me to continue to bring you daily news videos that you can trust. Now again, before he was elected Pope, there were lots of people speculating who was going to be the next Pope. And there was tons of names on the list, but there were a few frontrunners like Pietro Parolin and Tegel, who would have been the first Asian Pope. But apparently they wanted to do a different first Pope, and they went a route that was probably more controversial than anything else they could have done. But this is actually what was said about him before when they were saying who actually stood a chance. One strike against Prevost, however, is that he's American. And there has long been a taboo against a U.S. Pope, given the geopolitical power already wielded by the United States in the secular sphere. In fact, Robert Barron, a bishop of the Diocese of Winona Rochester in Minnesota, he said this: Cardinal George of Chicago, of happy memory, was one of the great mentors, he said. Look, until America goes into political decline, there won't be an American Pope. And his point was, if America is kind of running the world politically, culturally, economically, they don't want an American running the world religiously. So I think there's some truth to that, in that we're such a superpower and so dominant, they don't want to give us also control over the church. 2 years ago, there was an article that came out that talked about if there would ever be an American Pope, and it said the same thing, essentially that America would have to decline enough that the world superpowers saw that America was declined to the point where then they could actually have somebody as Pope, which is actually really terrifying when you think about it. I know God's in control, but think about what that means, that this was allowed to happen, which means what are they seeing behind the scenes of America's power today to allow this to happen? Look at this. For years, the consensus was that an American Pope would never fly, since the U.S. overtook the British Empire as the world's preeminent political and economic power. The consensus has been that an American pontiff would concentrate too much power in one country, while a non-American head of the Catholic Church would offer some counterweight to U.S. influence. Smarting Europeans and wary Latin Americans would, the consensus went, be especially wary of electing a pope from the U.S. And that's exactly why, even on sites like Polymarket, where people were betting on who could be the new pope, I don't recommend you do that, but up until today, every American didn't stand a chance. Nobody believed that an American would be the next pope. In fact, Prevost, just the other day, had a 1.2% chance to become the Pope. Now, before I show you where Pope Leo XIV, or Prevost, stands on LGBT and stuff like that, and reactions from people, I want to show you the fact that Prevost named himself, because when someone is elected Pope, they take a new name. This has been a practice that has been done for a long, long time in the Catholic Church. It wasn't always this way, but it's something that the popes do now for a very, very long time. And Prevost took the name now of Pope Leo XIV after Pope Leo XIII. Now, Pope Leo XIII was born in 1810 and was the head of the Roman Catholic Church and is known as, look at this, the social Pope, due to his progressive views and efforts to engage with modern society. He advocated for conciliatory positions towards civil government, scientific progress, and social needs. Now, progressive back in the 1800s wasn't the same as progressive today, but the roots are undoubtedly very similar. Now, the reason this is a concern, the fact that Prevost would take the name Pope Leo XIV after one of the most social-driven popes with his progressive views. And also, another thing to keep note of is that Pope Leo XIII had like the third longest papacy. And since Francis Prevost is only 69 years old, not only did they elect an American pope, but they elected an American pope that is young, that could be pope for decades. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes that they allowed this to happen. But look at this. Pope Francis appointed Prevost. Now, Francis appointed 80% of the cardinals that voted in this conclave. So, the fact that a cardinal that was elected by Francis became the Pope, that's not a big surprise because most of them were appointed by Francis. Now it says during his first months as prefect, then Archbishop Prevost continued to remain characteristically discreet in the media. Now this is something that I'm going to show you in just a few minutes, the things that he was reposting, the things he was posting on social media. He really had an uptick in speaking out against a lot of conservative ideas. And so this definitely changed over time. But it says on key topics, Cardinal Prevost says little, but some of his positions are known. He is reportedly very close to Francis's vision regarding the environment. So all of the climate talk, all of that stuff is going to be ramped up because this is a man that is actually probably more outspoken on climate stuff. Now, he also supported Francis's change in pastoral practice to allow divorced and civilly remarried Catholics to receive Holy Communion. Prevost appears somewhat less favorable to currying favor with the LGBT lobby than Francis, but he showed mild support for fiducia supplicans, which was essentially blessing LGBT couples within the church. Now, this is a huge slippery slope. Francis was very outspoken in his desire to be more welcoming to LGBT, to start blessing them and allowing them to do things that the Catholic Church didn't allow for forever. And then all of a sudden, Francis comes along. He's like, hey, yeah, no, this is allowed now. In fact, he has a wishy-washy rating on blessing of LGBT couples. And Prevost actually said during his acceptance speech that he wants Catholics to build bridges and bring unity between the Catholic Church and others. He also said we need to be welcoming to all people. These are the same things that Pope Francis advocated for. And we saw what happened to Pope Francis, especially in the last several years before his death. Not only did he turn LGBT friendly and change the fact that LGBT couples can be blessed in the church now, Pope Francis also accepted Universalism by saying that all faiths lead to God. For more on that, I show you video of himself saying that all faiths lead to God. Go watch my video. The Pope said this before falling deathly ill. So Prevost, who is now Pope Leo XIV, who named himself after an extremely progressive pope for his time, a very social pope, has taken a name to signal that he is going to be a social pope in the current climate. And and then has made his positions on a lot of things secret, but leaning towards the progressive side of social issues. In fact, on many issues, Prevost has been known to repost as far back as 2015. And you can see he's reposted a lot of posts from very progressive, very woke, and just disturbed people. You have Chris Murphy down here. He's reposting. Bishop Michael Olson, who basically bowed down to the BLM movement. I stand with the dreamers and all people who are working toward an immigration system that is fair, just, and moral, which means allow everybody into our country no matter what. We should have no standards. In fact, America should be the only country in the world to have no standards when it comes to immigration, which is just insane. The left and woke people are just insane when it comes to immigration. They don't care about you as a citizen, if you didn't notice. And also, Chris Murphy said, to my colleagues, your cowardice to act cannot be whitewashed by the thoughts and prayers. None of this ends unless we do something to stop it. So Prevost has been very active in reposting very woke people and very woke things. Jack Posobiec said, God save the church. And someone replied saying, going to be dope when this dude starts advocating for more immigration from these countries that want to conquer us and suppress Christianity altogether. This is the type of immigration that Prevost is advocating for. However, Charlie Kirk had a different point of view. He said, Scoop, our Turning Point Action Team pulled the voting history for Pope Leo XIV. He's a registered Republican who has voted in Republican primaries when not living abroad. Our data shows he's a strong Republican and he's pro-life. However, after many people were responding, Charlie Kirk also said the counter argument is he's tweeted criticisms of J.D. Vance and Trump's immigration policies and climate change. Colin Rugg said past tweets and retweets from Cardinal Francis Prevost, who was just elected as the 267th Pope, have resurfaced. Prevost previously shared tweets condemning President Trump for his position on illegal immigration. He also shared tweets calling on Trump to act on climate. Now, we have to remember that we have record high numbers of percentages of Americans that are for what Trump is doing with immigration because they've seen the absolute destruction that the Biden regime brought with just complete open borders. And I believe that's a huge part of why Commie Law Harry didn't become the president, because of immigration and how much it's just destroyed America from within. But this is the type of advocacy that Prevost has stood on for years and years. The same type of immigration that the Biden regime brought. So what kind of pope is Prevost going to be as Pope Leo XIV? Well, time is going to tell, obviously, but there are a lot of warning signs. And also, what does it mean for America as a superpower, for them to allow a pope from America, after saying for forever, essentially, at least since the founding of America, that they don't want a pope from the number one world superpower. And now what do they know behind the scenes that tells them otherwise to allow Prevost to become the Pope? I'd love to know your thoughts about this in the comment section below. Let's remember Psalm 115, verse 2 and 3. What a beautiful reminder and a hopeful reminder that God is in control no matter what. Look at this. Why should the nations say, "Where is their God?" Our God is in the heavens. He does all that he pleases. God is sovereign and in complete control. There's nothing happening that he is not allowing. And 1 Timothy chapter 2 also reminds us in verse 5 and 6, "For there is one God and there is one mediator between God and men, the man Christ Jesus, who gave himself as a ransom for all, which is the testimony given at the proper time." It is Jesus Christ and Jesus Christ alone that is our mediator between us and God. But hey, let me know your thoughts about all this in the comments section. I would love to hear from you. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button, join this community. I would love to hear from you on a regular basis. And please, hit that thumbs up button. You know, when you like this video, it'll get pushed out to more people, and it would really help spread the truth. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.